Hey everybody, good Saturday morning to you. It is early in the morning in Seattle. I'm sitting on the rooftop of our place here. Behind me, if you didn't see those clouds, you would see downtown Seattle. But right now, anytime that it's November and we get blue sky, I'm spending it outside. So um, again, welcome, good Saturday morning. The reason I'm doing this a little early this week is I leave for Hong Kong tomorrow morning and actually tomorrow afternoon, which will be Sunday, the 9th of November. I leave about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which will be 5 o'clock for most of you. And I'll be on an airplane for 15, 16 hours. So I wanted to make sure that I did this early and also let you know I will be accessible next week, but I will be 15 hours ahead of you. So if you need to chat with me, just bounce me an email. I'm going to make sure that I'm very accessible and we can move forward that way. And the next video you see will be from somewhere in Hong Kong. I haven't quite made up my mind where I want to do the next recap and preview video, but it'll be somewhere from over there. So we just finished up ECBA 406, lesson 3, and the discussion that you talked about this week was you identified a struggling company and talked about some of the things that may have happened that may have contributed to that struggle. One of my favorite books out there, or group of books, is by Jim Collins. He did Good to Great, but he also followed up on many of those companies in a later book called How the Mighty Fall. And one of the key takeaways on this is identifying when these companies are at the pivot point. So there's a point when they begin to start going downhill, if you will. And when you think about it from a product cycle perspective, there are some times when products are doing this, but there's a point when, unless they reinvent, do other things, that product will eventually die. Well, companies follow the same pattern, and trying to identify when those happen is a challenge. And so being able to understand and analyze organizations is very important, which is really the basis for lesson 3. How do you use organizational analysis? Some of the organizational analysis techniques that were presented in the book are great ways to do that, but also looking at the economic environment. And that's what you had to do in the course project portion this week on economics. And I had you really focus on the macroeconomic environment and the microeconomic environment. Now, that can be kind of confusing sometimes, but I just really like to think of it. The macroeconomic environment really focuses on global economy, it focuses on governments. And so as the economy slows, that has an impact on businesses, regardless of what business you're in. I mean, think about, from 2008 to 2011, 2012, during times of unemployment. I mean, that really impacted a lot of business. And if you're in particular businesses like travel, tourism, or those, that can really provide some challenging times for you. And so that is an impact. Also, currency changes. If you are a strong multinational company like a General Electric or a Procter and Gamble, if the dollar happens to be depressed versus worldwide currencies, you may be in better or worse shape depending on the impact of those currency exchanges. And so there are many different things that impact those, not the least of which are economic environments. And so that's why I had you take a look at those things to really understand the business that you're in, but understand that sometimes there are things that are out of your control that you have to manage. And so just because something is out of your control doesn't mean that it doesn't impact you, and it doesn't mean that you need to compensate for it in some way or another. And so that was really lesson 3, taking a look at a struggling company and then trying to develop um, organizational analysis methods and other things to find those things out. Because if you sit back and you don't do internal analysis, which is what you're going to do in lesson 4, by the way, then you're going to miss opportunities. So let's move forward to lesson 4. Lesson 4 has a discussion on outsourcing. Now, what I really, 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 really want you to do on this one is just don't look at it from a consumer perspective. Don't go in and say outsourcing costs, American jobs, and that's bad. Well, yeah, I like people to be employed like everybody else, but look at it from both sides of the fence, because honestly, if you're looking at getting into management and leadership, there's a balancing act. I mean, there's a balancing act between the cost savings that you have, the quality that you may have versus the quality that you may not have if you outsource things. Outsourcing is also something that if you're a company and you don't have an expertise in a particular discipline, you may be better off from a quality perspective to outsource it to somebody who is. And so outsourcing doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're outsourcing things to China. It can mean you're outsourcing it to another company in the Charleston area who actually has better expertise in that area. So make sure you take a real disciplined approach to this and look at both sides of the fence. The other thing that you're going to do is a SWOT analysis. And there's a police car coming. They're not going to get me, I don't think. Um, but you're going to do a SWOT analysis. And a SWOT analysis is really an internal and an external organizational analysis. So strengths and weaknesses are really, one second. Okay, strengths and weaknesses are really those things that are internal in your analysis. Opportunities and threats are those things that are external that could have an impact. Now, when you write this in your paper, a lot of students in the past have decided to use a graph or a chart, and that's perfectly fine with me. So, however you decide to put that together, whenever you turn it in, I'll give you some suggestions and some comments. But feel free if you'd like to do a graph or a chart and bullet point those, that would be perfectly fine with me. So hope you all have a good week. Again, I will be accessible this week. Just my timing is going to be a little bit different. So please take care of that, and I will chat with you from the mighty city of Hong Kong sometime in about a week. Have a great time.